So everyone tells you that building a windowless van is a massive mistake. They reckon by sealing it up, you're essentially building a damp, rotting coffin on wheels. They say you absolutely need massive glass panels everywhere that's going to be crawling with black mold by December, just to let the vehicle breathe. Well, I'm here to tell you lot that it's a load of rubbish. The experts are wrong. Here's the actual science of why they are dead wrong, and exactly why my new windowless stealth build is never going to rot away beneath my feet. Right, let's get one thing straight right from the off. The whole Instagram van life aesthetic is a total lie when it comes to surviving a proper British winter. You see all these lads and lasses posting in their knitted jumpers with fairy lights strung up, drinking a brew, but what they don't show you is the damp seeping into their cheap cladding. They don't show you the condensation dripping from the bloody roof directly onto their sleeping bags at 3 o'clock in the bloody morning. And they definitely don't talk about the sheer paranoia of stealth parking in the city when you've got massive windows glowing like a beacon, advertising to every dodgy bloke on the street exactly what's inside your van. Now, I've been living full time in my van in the UK for over 3 years now, and I know exactly what it takes to wake up absolutely freezing in January, surrounded by the moisture, wondering if your electronics are going to short out. The grim reality is, if you don't respect thermodynamics, your van will sweat, and mold will systematically destroy your hard work, your expensive 12-volt gear, and most of all, your health. Most builders slap up the cheap fiberglass wall, stick a few leaky bloody windows in, cross their fingers and pray for the absolute best. But when you're building a windowless fortress, like the new Luton box project I'm planning on doing, the rules completely change. You are locking the environment in. Sounds like a total nightmare, right? Like a recipe for rot. But I figured out a foolproof, scientifically sound way to beat the damp for good. Now I'm going to show you exactly how this is done, but first we need to talk about the invisible enemy. The enemy is moisture, and mate, you are a moisture producing machine. Every breath you take, every time you boil that kettle for a brew, every time you cook a little bit of pasta, and it's not just you. I've got Rowan in here with me. She's a working Cocker Spaniel, and she is a girl that loves the mud and a wet walk. Now when she comes back into the van and dries off, all the water has to go somewhere. In a poorly insulated van, that moisture hits the cold metal skin of the vehicle, hits the dew point, turns back into water, and then starts eating your van alive from the inside. So how do we stop it in a van with no windows to crack open? So step one is the barrier. You have to stop the warm, moist air inside a living space from ever touching the cold exterior skin. Now this is where people completely bodge the job. They use them recycled plastic bottles or that itchy bloody loft insulation just to save a few quid. That's the stuff that holds moisture like a bloody sponge. Once it's wet, the thermal properties of that are just basically knackered, and it's a breeding ground for mold. Now I don't mess around with rubbish. I'm using proper 75mm PIR board, Celotex. This is closed cell insulation. Now moisture cannot penetrate it. It gives you the absolute maximum thermal resistance for the thickness. Now because I'm building out a Luton box van with beautiful straight square walls, I can cut this 75mm Celotex perfectly to size, no faffing about trying to bend the rigid boards around an awkward curves of a standard panel van, which usually leads to a massive air gaps, to be honest. To guarantee zero rot, first I'm going to be putting 75mm Celotex all the way around. I'm talking the floor, the walls, the ceiling, and I'm not just wedging it in there and hoping for the best. I'm going to glue it. I'm going to glue that insulation directly to the box walls with some proper heavy duty adhesive. It needs to be rock solid, forming a complete thermal envelope with absolutely zero gaps. So once that Celotex is glued down tight and the walls and the floor and the ceiling, I'm going to be going over every single joint with some heavy duty silver tape. So every seam, every corner, every tiny gap gets taped. You seal it like your life depends on it. If there's even a pinhole, the warm air will find it. So this makes it totally airtight before we move on to the next layer. Now, this is where the magic happens, and this is the step most amateur builders skip because it takes a bit of extra grafting. So once that 75mm Celotex is all glued up, I'm going to bond some 2x1 or maybe 2x2 timbers directly to the wall on top of the insulation. Now, why, you might ask? Because that creates a crucial air gap between the insulation and the final wall. It acts as like a service cavity. Think about it. I run a massive 12-volt system. I need to power a PlayStation, the monitors, my Tectonica 5G router, and some heavy-duty Victron setup. I have cables running everywhere. If you bury them cables inside the actual insulation or pin them tight behind the cladding, you're asking for trouble. So by bonding these 2x2 timbers, I will create the perfect gap for my electrical cables can run cleanly through that void without compromising the insulation layer at all. But we aren't done there. Once that timber is bonded and the cables are run through the gaps, well, I'll drill a hole through them so the cables can run through, I will be putting in a breathable membrane. Now I'm going to pull that membrane tight all the way around the timbers and staple it securely. Floor, ceiling, roof and the walls. That membrane adds a massive layer of protection, controlling any stray moisture while still allowing the structure to breathe slightly into the air gap. Only after all that is done, I will put my finished product, the cladding or whatever rustic finish I choose at that time, over the top. Now, we've all made them dodgy DIY choices when we first start out, and finding out you've messed up your insulation in a year down the line is an absolute nightmare. So drop a comment down below. What is the one van life mistake that ended up costing you an absolute fortune to fix? So let me know down below, because heaven knows I've made plenty of bodged mistake in the past. Now, back to the build. Every single seam, every tiny gap where the Celotex meets the edges gets sealed with a high quality aluminium foil tape. I mean, you seal it like your life depends on it. If there is even a pinhole before the membrane goes on, the warm air will find it, bypass the insulation, hit the cold outer skin and condense. You are effectively building a thermal flask, a totally sealed box. And because we don't have windows, we don't have those massive thermal bridges where single pane glass lets the freezing cold radiate directly into the van. A window is essentially a massive hole in your insulation strategy. By ditching them completely, my thermal efficiency is going to be off the scale. The keyboard warriors will be screaming at the screen right now, Mark, if you seal it like a thermos, you'll suffocate and drown in your own sweat. And they'd hope to be right. If I stopped there, that is. So step 2 is the active ventilation and dry heat. You cannot rely on cracking the window in the UK in November. It's chucking down outside with rain. The air is already at 90% humidity, and opening a bloody window just lets more of that damp in. I'm going to use a Chinese diesel heater, not propane. Propane heating creates massive amount of wet heat. Burning it produces water vapor. It's the worst thing you can do for a van. A diesel heater, on the other hand, pulls combustion air from the outside of the van, exhausts the fumes on the outside and acts as a heat exchanger, blowing incredibly dry, hot air into the living space. Now, when you combine that with bone dry heat with a roof vent pulling the stale air out of the top, you create a controlled microclimate. The diesel heater breaks the moisture out of the air, the fan extracts it, the floorless Celotex barrier stops any cold surfaces from creating condensation. It's a perfect active system. It means I can stealth park in the middle of a grim industrial estate or in a freezing lay-by, completely invisible to the world, pulling no attention whatsoever inside. Now inside, it's 20 degrees. I've got the PlayStation fired up. The router is humming along. The walls are completely dry. No rot, no mold, just proper stealthy, comfortable home. Building a rig like this properly, buying genuine 75mm Celotex, massive lithium batteries for my gaming setup, getting decent timber that isn't warped, it takes a fair bit of cash. Now I get asked all the time, how do you afford to keep the diesel tank full buy a proper materials and play the PlayStation in the back of your van without grafting on site for bloody 60 hours a week like the rest of you. Now, the honest truth is, I fund this whole lifestyle through affiliate marketing. It completely changed the game for me. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It takes real work, but it means I've got control of my own time and I can focus on these massive builds. So if you're sick of the daily grind and you want to see exactly how I make an income on the road, now I've put together a completely free video series explaining how it all works. So I'll leave a link for that down in the description if you want to check it out. There's no pressure there. So the next time someone tells you that a windowless van is going to rot, you can tell them they simply don't understand the science of insulation. So if you manage the moisture at source, stop it hitting the cold metal with the flawless Celotex barrier, build proper service cavities for the airflow and electrics, wrap it in the membrane and use dry heat to actively ventilate, you will never see a speck of mold. You get all the benefits of the ultimate stealth, massive thermal efficiency and absolute security. If you want the actual truth about full-time van life in the UK, the good, the bad and the real technical grafting, then hit that subscribe button. We're building a proper community of realists here. No fake fluff. All the gear, the tools, the insulation, the 12-volt bits are all linked in the description, and the Kofu link is also down there as well in case you want to buy Rowan a nice treat. But just before you head off, YouTube's algorithm has been crunching the numbers and it seems to think you're going to absolutely love one of these two videos right here on the screen right now. Now, I've made sure both of them are packed with the exact same unfiltered, no bullshit advice we've gone through today. So they are well worth a look if you're planning your own rig or you just want to see the reality of living on the road. Whichever one you pick, it's bound to save you a massive headache down the line. Be sure to check it out right now, click through, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.